What's up? Welcome to episode 48 of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. Matt, we're going to talk more technique today, but before we do that, I just heard some big news on FRL, and that is Kyle Dake is not going down to 74 kilograms like we all thought. How do you feel about that?
You know, it's interesting to see. I kind of thought we would see some movement, some way at least one or two weights that
Yes.
a guy's going to stake his claim and say, hey, this is my weight class for the Olympic year. I'm going to go down. I'm going to challenge for it right now in 2019. And if I make the team and if I get a medal, all of a sudden it gives me a huge advantage in the qualifying process for the Olympics.
Yeah, and Kyle Dake has said as much that sitting out is such a huge advantage. So when he did do it this year, which everyone thought he was doing it, it was almost shocking. Like, wow, what is going on here? So I have no inside information. Do you have any inside information?
No, I haven't really heard anything. I would just positionally, like I was saying, I just thought there might be some movement. We might see someone stake their claim to, the Olympic weight classes for next year. I kind of thought maybe there might be that with Jaden Cox as well, but doesn't seem like we're going to see that movement either.
Matt, I got an idea. When you call Rob Cole to figure out who else he's going to sneak into his lineup next year, you can ask him what the dirt on Kyle Dake is.
Okay, I'll call him today. I'll call him after this. I actually have to catch up on a few things with him. But yeah. So what are your thoughts? I mean, what
I think so.
If you were to put yourself into his shoes, what do you think his thinking is or his rationale?
So the flow guys were speculating that maybe there's an injury because if there, he would have to wrestle at the Open. For 74 kg, and that obviously with Brian Alexi gets to sit out till June, so people are speculating that maybe that's an issue. I mean, he hasn't competed, Matt. He hasn't competed since last October.
Right, and he's had a history of injuries, and not just minor injuries, pretty significant injuries. So maybe that is a factor. I don't know. I really haven't heard anything. I don't want to speculate, but it's kind of curious. So if he would be. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but if he is injury free, what if you could put yourself in his shoes and speculate a little bit? What do you think his thought process is if he is completely healthy and ready to go? Because
I don't know, because he himself has said multiple times before how much of the advantage is to sit out. So if he made that decision not to, I have no idea why. I really don't. I would like someone to interview him on that.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, have you heard anything about Jaden Cox? You have any insight on that?
I have no insight on that either. He's out at the training center right now. He's not at Mizzou. I haven't asked anyone about him. For me, honestly, part of me says Jaden's going. I mean, I've heard opposite, but part of me said he's going up because I know that 86 was hard for him to make when it was the day before weigh-in, and now it's not a day before weigh-in, Matt. It's you have to make it both days, scratch weight. Dude, that's gonna be hard for him. It's gonna be really hard for him.
Yeah, so the acclimation moving up, even though it's going to take more effort to get his body. I mean, we've seen both sides of the coin. I think when we saw David Taylor move up a year ago, I think it took him an entire year to really acclimate to that new body type.
I think even more than that, size, really.
Right, and I think it would be the same way when you're moving down. If you're Kyle Dake, you're just not all of a sudden going to go down to 74 kilos and feel perfectly fine.
No, I know when I made it for the first time in 07, I felt like crap every single time I made it, and that was day before weigh-ins. That wasn't morning of weigh-ins.
Yeah, so I mean, you could speak to this. I mean, because
it's hard.
For the first time, you made a weight class a day before your fight,
and it affected me.
And I'm sure you could have felt that the after effects a day later. And I know we've touched upon it, but there is like the way you recover from a weight cut is very scientific at this point. You can't just say, "Well, I hope I dialed in my recovery time appropriately," especially when it's day of. So, I would think there would have to be 3 or 4 competitions where you really dial everything in, not just getting down to weight, but feeling good, and the reality with Kyle is,
I mean, the reality is this, in the old process, almost all of these dudes were sucking, say 4 to 6 kilo of water weight the day before. And now with a morning of weigh-in and then having to make it the next day, that number is probably down to 1 to 2 if you want to compete well. So the way people are making weight, how big they could be for that weight class is significantly changed. And so, yeah, maybe Kyle Dake doesn't want to make this weight for a whole another 4 times or something. 4 times isn't even that many. I don't know. I think he might be hurt. I think that might be true. I have no idea. I don't get it. From what he said in the past to the stakes, in this, I don't get why he's not going down.
Yeah, because it wasn't. Kyle never came out and flat out said that was the reason why he couldn't beat Jordan Burroughs, but he did indicate that that was a significant advantage. Being able to sit out.
Yes, huge. He said that multiple times.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll see.
Well, we need some answers from Kyle because me and you we have no answers.
Yeah.
None. So okay. Well, we do have answers on Matt. We got answers on this technique project.
Yes, we do.
We're getting a lot of people are tweeting about. I think they tweeted that initial graph out quite a bit, Matt, and now we had a bunch of episode 47 came with a bunch of graphs. Episode 48 comes with a bunch of graphs. People are going to be loving these graphs, and I think these graphs, the ones yesterday, they told us a lot. I think today tells us a lot too. So today we're going to be talking about parterre. We're going to be talking about control ties. And we're going to be talking about defense. And a little bit of push outs.
Yeah, and I think before we jump into this, just to preface this episode and the previous 2 episodes, this is our first foray into really jumping in and breaking this stuff down. I think the response that we've received and the level of interest that we've received based on this has shown that there's an appetite for this information.
Absolutely.
And I think we're going to be doing this more. And, for everyone that wants to know, I think we're going to expound on this. We're going to include different categories. I think, different events, different styles, obviously are in play, but, dialing this in, it's a little bit more comprehensive than you would think it would be to really dial this in and talk about it, intelligently enough. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that we have the formula to do it, I think it becomes a lot easier than the first time. I mean, the first time is just getting it started. That was a beast, but now it should be easier and easier and easier. Hopefully, we're gonna do it for the U.S. Open. That would be great. I think we can do it. I think we can do it in short order. But yeah, we'll probably expand past this. So let's get into this data. I think on the last episode we talked about multiple times that my mind was blown. I think in this one. Parterre blew my mind, and after that, I think, and we'll talk about. I think it goes fairly in line with what I thought. So we'll start with parterre scores. Parterre scores accounted for 272 points, which is significant because really the offense, shots were 477, defense was 272. Some of the other categories they crossed back into shots. So we're talking. We'll say roughly 800 points scored on the feet. So to have, roughly 300 points scored on the mat, that's, that's 40% of the points. So it's,
and then when you really break this down, I think of the scoring in parterre and the percentages, and I'll let you break this down, but the percentage of scores being so in favor of the gut wrench, this is probably, you could probably tell me more, but it looks like the gut wrench is probably the number 1 scoring technique of all the scores that you registered, right?
Well, it is. You know what? Yeah. I didn't even think about it in that terminology, Matt. But yeah, it is because our double leg scored. We did it on the last show. Double leg scored 150. Single leg scored 141. And there were some other we'll call them auxiliary single leg techniques. But yeah, I mean, gut wrench. So the gut wrench is the most important move in freestyle wrestling. That's crazy.
There you go.
I didn't even think about it. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, you know what? And honestly, I thought, and I would like to get, and we need to do this study more to make sure. So I loved the gut wrench back in the day, and so when I came up wrestling, and I don't know, they've changed the rules so much, man. I don't know if you were under the same rule set or not as me, but when I came up, the rule was that you could gut or lace, but you couldn't do them consecutively. Meaning, so for the gut wrench, you had to hold them for an extra point. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you could gut, hold, gut, hold, gut, hold. I got so many 10-point tech falls by getting one takedown and going 1-0, and then going gut, hold, gut, hold, gut, hold for 9 points, 2 + 1.
But you had to be clear though, right?
You had to do the hold.
You had to gut. You had to get the 1 point. You had to get the 5-point exposure before you transition into your next gut. So you couldn't go gut, 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 gut.
Yes, exactly.
It had to be gut, hold.
And so, right? So that's what I was going to say is there weren't a lot of people doing laces in my era because you could only lace one time.
Right, because you can't really hold a guy on his back after a gut wrench. You just end up back on top.
Yeah, after leg lace. So here's what I think happened, Matt. When they got rid of that and they said you could do either one of them consecutively, I think in that era, not a lot of people were doing leg laces. So what happens? People get bad leg lace defense because nobody's doing it. Okay. So then all of a sudden when they say you could go as many times as you want, so now you get one leg lace, you can get 10 points easy. And then people also have bad leg lace defense. People were just rolling people up with laces. So then that kind of made people forget about gut wrenches. And now there's this comeback to the gut wrench, which we're showing in this, almost 5-1 over the lace in 2018 at the World Championships. That's kind of how I feel happened. That's the story I'm going to tell myself because I don't have any data to disprove myself.
Well, yeah, and until, what we were just talking about, until we have more sample size than just one competition like the World Championships, you can't really you can have ideas or you can have thoughts, but you can't really make emphatic statements as this is what's influencing the rise of this technique or the emphasis on that technique. But moving ahead, we should be able to get in a more informed opinion about these techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. So either way, gut wrenches, most scored upon technique. I didn't even think of that, Matt, but yes, they were. So, I think the way, let me tell you this one funny one though.
Okay.
Yeah, look at 97 kg, and that's what we kind of say across the board. There's no a lot of guts at this weight, no guts. There was nothing that kind of went across the board that was obvious to us that really just stuck out. But look at the gut wrenches at freaking 97 kg. They almost scored 50 points worth of gut wrenches.
Far and away, it basically doubled the two other highest. Yes. We had just under 30, right around 25, 27.
Yep. So obviously, a lot of that, I don't know exactly how many points. A lot of ththose are obviously Sadulaev's points. I don't know exactly how many, but I guess who else? I wish I knew all these international competitors. But who else has got a really good gut wrench at 70 kg? I'm sorry, 97 kg.
I mean, Sadulaev, like to your point, he's the one. I mean, he's probably got the best gut wrench in the entire world.
Well, so I mean, I could just say right off the bat, we only did the round of 16, quarters, semis, finals. In the finals, he doesn't score any gut points. Right. So he's only got 3 matches. If he gets to take down each one of those matches, he's going to have a maximum of 24 gut points, meaning that other people had to score a lot of gut wrenches as well, not just him.
Yeah, it would be interesting if we had that individual data, like how that skews. Like if there's any other weight classes, like at 60, 57 kilos, it looks like had about 25.
Yeah, I mean the little guys actually, you know what? And I would have generally said the little guys would be harder to gut because they're usually generally more flexible. They can do the step over defenses, grab legs, and what you're seeing here, with the exception of 97, there's more gut wrench points at lower weights than there are upper weights, which I found to be interesting.
So it's interesting. So this, I wanted to tie in one more point. This kind of, and we're not probably going to touch on it as much, and that's in the penalty points. But the one thing that we've drawn out is gut wrench is the highest scoring technique in all of wrestling right now at the senior levels in the World Championships. So when you're talking about tactics and execution,
you're going to say grab with the good fingers.
Yeah. But if you can get a guy in a shot clock, right?
Yeah.
Or fingers or get a penalty point. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah. That this is the one hard fact that we drew out that gut wrench is the most important.
I thought you were going to say, Matt, I thought you were going to say when you're on bottom, you should just grab some fingers. It's like in Greco, grabbing someone's leg is worth 2 points, right? A penalty and 2 points. So I can never, for the life of me, when you're getting lifted and getting thrown, that's either going to be a 4-point technique or a 5-point technique. I don't get why does anyone get thrown? Just grab the damn leg. It's only 2 points.
Yes. So same thing here, especially against a guy like Sag Live. Like,
you might as well just grab the fingers till you get penalized.
I can't let him lock his hands. If he locks his hands, I'm going.
Yeah.
So how do I avoid that? Get a penalty point.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I think it's probably your best bet. And you know what? I mean, I always had a really good gut wrench, so I was always annoyed when people grab fingers and hands because it is technically illegal. But man, there's some refs that'll let them do it. There's some refs that'll just let them do it, and they won't call it, and it's so annoying. And so, man, if you're going against a Sag Live or something like that, you might as well just grab some damn fingers because it's probably going to save you a whole bunch of points.
Yeah, because there's a running clock in the referees' heads before they bring you back up to your feet. So when I was coaching guys, I would always say, hey, attack the hands. Make the ref physically slap your hand off. Yes. Make him clear you off the hands or the fingers or the wrist. Because in his head, the running time is still running, even though he's slapping your hands.
I agree. That made me so mad, Matt, when I used to try to gut wrench people, and they would warn the bottom guy, and they would warn the bottom guy, and they would warn the bottom guy. And then to your point, they don't give you extra time. Right? They don't give you extra time. Right. That was so annoying. That one made me so mad. Yeah. Now I'm getting angry. I'm getting angry here thinking about not being able to gut wrench people because bottom guys are cheating. Hey, the other question, I don't remember who I showed this to, Matt. I did show it to somebody. And this is probably something we could add next time, but they said how many of those gut wrench points were trapped arm gut wrench points because, on a trapped arm, frequently you get more than one turn. Like we said with the legs.
Yeah, I mean.
So I think we can add that in next time, and I think that would be a pretty easy add. So do total.
Because that, I mean.
Go ahead.
Most likely, you're going to, if you get that trapped arm, you're talking about multiple exposures.
Yes.
So that's going to automatically inflate the number of gut wrenches if you get a trapped arm.
Yes, absolutely. So, do it. Do something where you're doing, total gut wrench points, and then of those, how many of them were with the trapped arm? That would be interesting to see. I would guess, just from watching, my feeling is not that many. No, I mean, it's not going to be it might be 20%, but it's not going to be 50 or 60%. That's just my feeling based on watching a lot of the matches.
Yeah, because there's a level of urgency there. If you get your arm trapped, you're done. You're done. I mean, it almost takes the top man to have a breakdown in his execution, not to tech fall you with a trapped arm. Because if he gets that securely locked up, there's really nothing you can do. There's nothing.
Yes.
So that's probably the end game if you get trapped arms. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So the other thing, Matt, the front headlock assassin and crouch lift, they're pretty much worthless. They scored almost. Front headlock assassin scored no points. Crouch lift scored 2 total points. So, man, I almost just forget about those techniques. They're not in there. So who knows? Maybe in the next couple ones we do, those will pop up somehow. But in this one, almost none.
But again, and I think that this goes back to our introductory episode. Like if you look at at the age group levels, if you look at the schoolboys and you look at cadets and juniors, I think there's probably a lot of crotch lifts that are going on. And there's reasons for that you pointed out. One, there's physical reasons. Like when you're smaller, it's really hard to lock up a good gut and turn a guy.
Yes.
It's much easier to lock him in his crotch and roll him through. And because you can
they just don't understand their defense or their base.
Right. But it's interesting if you looked at the schoolboy and cadets, what the stats would be as far as crotch lifts or different types of exposures, as opposed to, the highest scoring techniques in the senior level are guts, ankle laces. It would be interesting to see the cross section of other turning techniques at the other age groups.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if we're going to get that data. This is like you said. This is a lot of work. It's enough work to do just for the senior level, let alone all levels. Okay, so let's go on. Control ties is our next category. So we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. So the way I quantified those for me, the control ties are your 2-on-1, your underhook, your overhook, your over/under. I thought this kind of came out just how I thought it would, except that 2-on-1, I knew it wasn't going to score a lot of points, but they only scored 2 points off a 2-on-1 in freaking 170 matches. That kind of blew my mind about, how useless it is. That was really shocking to me. I thought it would be low, but I didn't think it would be that low.
Yeah, I mean 1.6%. I mean that's really, really low.
Yeah,
I mean
minuscule. It's almost not even worth using.
I mean the 2-on-1 is kind of associated more with international competitors.
Yeah,
and to the point a lot of people call it a Russian tie. So I think there's an indication that there's a much higher usage rate with the 2-on-1 than obviously the stats indicate.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. One thing, so obviously I think we all knew that the underhook would be better than an overhook. That's just common sense for wrestlers. Over-under is somewhere in the middle. I think that makes total sense. So so again, just to remind everyone, if you for some reason missed the first episode, the methodology is if you get an underhook, so that can score points from an underhook. It would obviously also be in the setup category as a control tie to a shot. You could score points from whatever shot you hit, right? So points can score in multiple categories. So obviously underhook, best control tie setup. When you go down and you look by category, and I can't identify exactly who these are like I could with Central Live, but 79 kg, I got to think that Kyle Dake is in there with some points, or a whole bunch of points. He likes an underhook quite a bit. And then I know I believe Hasanov, who made the finals across from him, he uses an underhook quite a bit also, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that's why that sticks up so high in those categories. You're also seeing quite a bit at 61, at 65, a lot of underhooks in those categories as well. You got anything else to say about control ties? I mean, I think they're so important especially because of edge work. And if you look at, there's let me just do the math real fast. Sorry, 67, 90, 105, like 130 points scored from a control tie mat. And then
it would almost,
if you go into push outs, so there are 62 of those control tie points out of the total roughly 130 were push outs. So you're using a lot of those underhooks, over-under positions to get push-out points. So there's only roughly 70 points that went from a control tie to some type of takedown and or throw.
Now this is really digging down into the scoring breakdown. It would be interesting to see what areas of the mat these techniques are being utilized at.
Oh my God, man! I don't have that capability for that type of. That's like high level, high level technology you're talking about. I got a freaking Excel sheet or Google Doc sheet and some eyes, and that's it.
And a couple of your club guys, right? But absolutely. I'm just thinking, as through my coaching lens, like of these control ties that transition into push outs, like.
Yes.
What areas of the mat were these control ties really utilized at? How often were they utilized at the center of the mat? How much when you start getting into the zone of a competition?
Oh, I got to assume way more. Way more.
You would think, right? But again, these are just general assumptions, but that's just, a general thought that popped into my head about where on the mat are they actually utilizing these techniques?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what I thought also. One thing that, and this doesn't go into the scoring, but more just like when you're watching them, and we talked about the leg lace, just the way the rules affect the wrestling. When they invented the edge rule, if you watched like the edge battles back then, I believe that was it 05 or 06, somewhere in there, Matt? And then you watch the edge battles now, people are so damn slick with their underhook defense and they're pummeling back in. It's just really, really high level wrestling that didn't really exist before because, there wasn't an edge rule.
Right.
So I thought that's pretty fascinating to watch. I know we drilled that in my club. We drilled some of those edge battles last week because that's one of the biggest. That's one of the biggest changes, right, from folk style to freestyle is the edge battles and having to deal with that and how.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where a lot of coaches probably don't understand. There is technique when it comes to a push out, where your hand position, where your head position, where your hip positions are, moving up and through the chest as opposed to just straight armed with your technique. So
and the Iranians are the king of the push outs. I mean, they are.
Oh, I was going to say Yazdani. when you think about push out, you think of Yazdani,
who's
right?
that little the little 61 kg guy from Iran? He didn't wrestle. It's Yakashi is the guy that wrestled this year. It's not him. You know who it was, Matt? You remember that match where he broke? I hate to bring this up because it's bad against an American. Reese Humphrey was up like 7-0, and this dude just kept like a freaking tank, just forward. He ended up gassing Reese out, and he won like 8-7. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can't. I know who you're talking about. I just can't think of the name. I mean, if for fans of wrestling, like if you want to see a country do Iowa style better than Iowa, it's Iran, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they talk about creating pressure, talk about forward pressure, heavy on the head, wearing guys down. I mean, those guys are the epitome. And Yazdani, more than anybody, is just he creates such tremendous force and pressure on his opponents.
Oh, it's Asmilapur. I who knows if I'm saying that right. Yeah, he was an.
I would definitely screw it up. So I'm not even going to attempt.
He was an animal. Yeah, so 2-time world medalist. Yeah, he was a pushing machine. Yeah, and they're both good with the They got a good underhook. They got a good seatbelt position. They get down there low and they just push and they push and they push. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
It really is.
Okay, so we're good. We're good on control ties. I think obviously underhook, freestyle position you have to know. Obviously, people know underhooks. You got to also know the overhook, how to clear out, how to defend. Maybe don't spend so much time on a 2-on-1. Okay, defensive scores. I thought this was fascinating. We're seeing a lot of different kinds of defensive scores, and so defensive scoring is actually tied for second place in scoring with parterre. And I think what you're seeing is that obviously because there's a lot of shots, just there's going to be a lot of defense, right? I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep.
So,
yep, for sure.
Number one score is a down block go back. I was talking to Mark Bader, talking about my May 6th match this morning against Jordan Burroughs, live, beat the streets on flow. The down block go behind as it exists today didn't exist even say 7 years ago or 8 years ago it just didn't exist, Matt. And now people are so damn good at it. They're so efficient with it. It's such a good technique because I call it defense and offense. It's all of those things mixed into one. And you see it right here. 26% of the defensive scores were down block go behinds. So, if you want to see some more, Nick Suriano's got a great one. Rutherford's got a great one. Miles Martin. If you guys want to see exactly what I'm talking about, what I'm talking about when I say down block go bend, it's not that they stop them and then they score. They miss the head, they catch the shoulder, and they're going behind all in one motion with the slickness. And that's for me, that's what I define as a down block go behind.
The Dolphins. You've got a new term
the
there.
Dolphins.
We had terminal offense a couple weeks ago. Now you have Dolphins.
Are you going to make a shirt that says Dolphins? You didn't make a shirt that said terminal offense yet.
I know. But yeah, I mean, the transition between stopping the shot, and into your reattack is, we've seen the proficiencies from so many guys over the last, 10 years, probably less to your point.
Well, I think it's less, Matt. I think it's less like as it exists today. Definitely not in 2008. And I don't think 2010, like I want to say the first time I remember seeing it was like 12, 13, 14. I'm trying to put my exact finger on when it was. It definitely wasn't 8. It definitely wasn't 10. So at the very most 8 years ago.
Yeah, and I think when we're talking about execution and areas of execution at the highest level, I think your head block and your down block defense is so critical.
Yeah.
And
so Matt,
when
you're using the head block, and I maybe I should have another stat category. As for me, lots of times head blocks turn into reshots, right? Because the other guy comes back up, and so when you look at reshot, that's 19% of the points, which is also a huge amount. And so when you're looking,
we're a down block. So to break it up, the down block traditionally is down block go down, where it's head block reattack.
Yeah. So I usually say down block uses your shoulder, a head block uses your head, obviously, and that generally turns into a reshot. So if you look at those two categories, Matt, and 26 to 15, so 46, 47% of the scores, the shooter didn't even touch the legs. Right? Or didn't get a lock on the legs whatsoever. And so I think that's indicative because that's almost 50%. So if you look at the rest of them, whether it's a sprawl, go behind, a step over, a dump, or a scramble, the shooter got to the legs. And so in my practices, we do a whole bunch of two things. Number one, if they get their hands locked on your legs, they win. So we call that, either live to a lock or hard in, easy out, meaning the first part of it's live. And we do a lot of the second part, which means they get to the shot, then you go live. So you drill to a shot, then you go live. And so I think when you look at that, it's roughly 50-50. You're seeing people score points in both categories. So I think those things are equally important to have, a really good knowledge of.
For sure. And I think there's so many, at so many levels, defense is started with sprawling, right? Where, really, what I would always talk to my guys about is like, that should be your third line of defense. It should go head, hands, baseline defense, right? Because I would tell guys like, hey, we gotta incorporate our head and hand defense, simply because if he can't touch your leg, he can't score.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, my best example of this, Matt, is Jason Nolf 2 years ago when he was known as a scrambler, and then all of a sudden, his knee was hurt and he knew he couldn't scramble, and all of a sudden his baseline defense became so good that no one got to his legs.
Yeah. He knew he was vulnerable. He was exposed. So you can't even let a guy into that position.
Yes. Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's super important, and kids will be stubborn on that. They'll be really stubborn, and that's why I think you almost have to force them into those drills where, if they're competitive enough, then they're going to try to win, even despite the fact that they don't really like that specific technique. They would prefer to, there's some guys who would prefer to scramble, and there's some guys who are terrible scrambles, so they prefer to just down block, go behind. But you have to know both sides of that coin. Otherwise, roughly half the time you're going to be in trouble if you don't know both sides.
And also in addition to that, I think really good offensive guys with really good leg attacks, I would always stress to those guys like, hey, if you really dial in your head and hands defense, it's going to give you actually more freedom and confidence to really let it go on your feet, because that's your best area. But if you have suspect defense, you're going to be less inclined to really open up and attack the legs that you normally would. But if you've got great head and hands defense all of a sudden, and you're great with your leg attacks, you're going to have more freedom and confidence to actually let it go on your feet, because I'm going to stop this guy. If he actually tries to attack me, I'm going to stuff it with my head. I'm going to stuff it with my shoulder.
That's such a huge skill to understand, that just specifically the down block, go behind, because, one situation I see a lot in high school wrestling, even in college wrestling, one guy is backing, right? They're kind of moving backwards, Matt. And the other guy does not know how to pursue effectively. So let's say the guy pursuing, say he wants to shoot, right? But then the guy backing dives in on a shot, and the guy chasing him then is kind of in that position where they got their legs caught, and then they're stuck there. And then the same thing happens over and over and over again. And the pursuer never gets his own shots off because he's too busy pursuing, and the other guy's shooting from far out. Do you know what's you kind of feel me? So if the pursuer learns a good down block, go behind, now the guy shoots from far away, you down block, go behind him. Hey, problem solved, because now the dum-dum can't shoot again from far out because you're going to down block, go behind him. Now you're going to be able to get to your offense instead of being stuck in a stalemate-ish position.
Yeah, so in that position, you're actually talking about stalking the guy down, forcing him into a bad shot. He's on his heels.
Yes.
He's backing up. He's giving up center position. Yeah. So eventually, if you keep exerting force, moving forward, force him into a bad shot, down block, go behind.
Yeah, I mean, Zane was great at it.
Phenomenal.
I mean, Nick Suriano, he's tough because he's kind of a down block, go behind. He's kind of a reshot guy. There's a little bit of mix of both, but same thing: pressure, boom, reattack.
And this was Suriano, and I know we're digressing into folk style, but I actually thought that's where Suriano really evolved this year. Is he opened up with his leg attacks, which actually made his down block reattack even more effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because now all of a sudden guys had to think about like, hey, before it'd be like, okay, we got to be really, really disciplined with our attacks when we wrestle Suriano, because that's where he's looking to score. Now they've got multiple levels where they've got a game plan for. It's like, okay, before it was okay, be disciplined with your attack, but don't really worry about his leg attacks. Now what he showed this year is like he showed more confidence to actually go for the leg attack, which I thought made his defense even more potent.
Yeah. So when we go down below, if you just scroll down a little bit on the graphs, it shows, we talk about there's no discrepancies by weight, and it's like, okay, you'll get down, block, go behind, and there's a huge freaking line for heavyweight, Matt, which, makes sense, kind of. But then you look at 97 kg, and there's not 1 point. And so you're like, okay.
Which is crazy.
If you're thinking, hey, big guys are more likely to get these, then you would think that 97 would have some, but they have none. They actually have quite a bit of points in the reshot and the scramble category. And so again, when you look at a by the weight breakdown that you guys have here on the bottom, it's like there's nothing really that says, okay, big guys are great at this, because if you look at the sprawl stuff go behind and the down block go, heavyweights are high, which in my opinion, that's what I expected. Then I looked at 97 kg, there's not that many points. I looked at 92 kg, not that many points. I looked at 86, not very many down block go behinds, but quite a bit of sprawl stuff go behinds. There's just nothing here that's obvious that sticks out that says boom, 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 boom. You need to know this. It's weird.
Yeah, so it's funny, like, of all the breakdowns, there aren't consistent trends by weight areas. I'm not going to say weight class, because we've seen the varying things, but there's, even in the different weight areas, like lightweight, middleweight, upperweight, heavyweights, like there's no consistency, across the board, crazy. which is surprising to me.
Yeah, it's super surprising, because you would think, man, I would have bet a lot of money that there would have been, weight category, right? So small, medium, large, essentially, is the way I'm thinking about it. Tendencies. And what we've seen through this is there's just really not. It's crazy.
No.
It's mind-blowing almost. Okay. Anything else you want to say? Defense, scrambling. So I told you earlier before the show, Matt, I wanted to break the scrambling up into specific scramble areas to even break that down further. It was a freaking disaster. It was a disaster. So we just ended up sticking with scramble points as its own category, meaning the guy got to the legs, and it wasn't a sprawl stuff go behind, and it wasn't a dump. So how else do you score that? And so we scored those in the scramble category.
At some point, I'm sure we're going to be able to break it down into specific areas.
The scrambling was really hard, Matt. It was, because we'd watch them and be like,
it's so
do I count that? Do I count that as
right?
Do I count that as a far ankle scramble? Do I count that? What do I count that as?
Do I count like there's a switch that's being used to switch into your scrambling? It's really tough to break it down.
It was a really hard challenge, and so we just said, hey man, this is going to be a disaster. This is going to look ridiculous. So let's just stick with scrambling as a category. And so you see that's actually a scramble is actually the second highest category behind down block go behinds. You got dump being fairly high also, meaning your chest wraps, your crotch lifts, that kind of stuff from their shot. And then, sprawl stuff go behind. And this is, I was thinking, I'm going to tie this in something that is actually pretty low. And I think what that shows is kind of the same thing as way above. Do you remember when I said that the front headlock / mantis position was very, very low scoring on that category? Remember, on the overall points? And I just think at this high of a level, it's hard to score on someone from there. So if you're sprawling, then stuffing, then trying to go behind, that's enough time for the person to react. And they can. It's hard to score on them from there, and that's why I think you see that number being so low. And that's, again, why the down block go behind is such a fast, aggressive defensive score. It's offense. And so I think that's, one of the reasons sprawl go behind is so low in this category. Although,
and also it could be, Ben, that there's a lot better proficiency on the head block and the down block. So there's not
people aren't
as
even
many opportunities for baseline.
Yeah.
So guys, and it's kind of what we talked about yesterday. When guys get their hands locked on a leg, whether it's on your feet or on the mat, advantage the offensive guy. And, here, advantage defensive guy if you really utilize head block and down block defense, because if you actually have to go to your sprawl go behind, the likelihood of you stopping the score or actually getting a score probably goes down dramatically.
Yeah, that's a really, really,
again, that's
point.
just
Nice. I didn't even really think about it that way. Yeah, I like that thought process, Matt. Okay, last category we're gonna go through, and then we'll be done with this, and then we're gonna. You know what? I don't think we'll take 3 episodes to go through every time. So, if we do this for the US Open, which I think we're going to, we'll have to revisit, something talking about the differences between the two, and maybe just put the graphs up and then, do one podcast talking about the differences between the World Championships and the 2019 US Open.
Yep.
So last one, push-outs. They scored 150 points. So quite a significant number. They're the 4th highest category after shot, defense, parterre. So, push-outs are a significant amount of points. There's no doubt about that. 62 points were from control ties. 79 points were from some type of shot to a push-out. I don't know what else we're gonna say about this. I think there's 9 points that were unaccounted for somewhere. That was the hard part about this, Matt. When there was small discrepancies here, it would be hard to go back through every single match and find out where exactly they counted a push out point, but they didn't count whether it was from a shot or a control tie. But
right. So when I look at the shots, this would probably go into some of what we broke down from the wrestling areas being outside middle wrestling or inside control ties. I would venture to say the majority of these shots are generated from either outside or your middle tie-up position, correct?
You mean the push-out points?
The push-out, but it's generated from those areas, right?
I don't know. You know what? When I think about it, I don't know the answer to this. When I think about it, I think like one of my tactics, right? If I'm getting someone an underhook and I'm close to the edge, one of the things I might do is I might drop to a leg, pick it up, and push him out. But it might be, hey, I start in the center, I shoot a single leg. This guy's got annoyingly good single leg defense, and so I push him out.
Right.
So yeah, man, I think
or you shoot, or you kind of take. I know especially when you're on the edge, half shot into a push out. So it's not a fully engaged,
yes, sure,
leg attack to try and get to the leg. It's a setup. Yes. You're taking a half shot, head to center, driving up and through his torso into your push out. So the shot would actually be a setup to your push out.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a tactic. So I don't have a great answer to that question for you. And I don't even know how we would. I don't know how we would do that.
I mean, you'd really have to. I mean, really focus in specifically on the push out to get that data pulled out.
Yeah, that would be, dude. Yeah, that would be a challenge. Okay, so I guess that's kind of going to be it for this project. Matt, when you told me this was going to be more than one show, I kind of thought you were crazy, and now we made it a three full episodes talking about nothing but technique. I think people really enjoyed it based on my Twitter, email, and Facebook comments. You got anything else that you want to say about the technique project, or?
No, I think this is great. I mean, I think this is, people want to know. I mean, people have discussions all the time when you're talking about wrestling and you're talking about tactics and techniques. You're like, well, no, you should do this, or you should focus on that. I mean, this gives you more tangible and specific information to point to. Is like, hey, the numbers say this. And so, based upon our discussion, or, when you're meeting as a coaching staff, or really breaking down what specific techniques you really got to focus on, leading up, because this is the time of year. We've got national level event after national level event after national level of events. So, this is the time of year really to dive into this information and to pull some of this data out and bring it to light.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to do it again for the US Open. Matt, we'll be back next week. I don't even know what we'll be talking about. We'll figure something out because we got one more week to the US Open, which is highly anticipated. After that, we got Beat the Street. After that, we got the World Team Trials. After that, we got five. We're going to be rolling after that, Matt. It's going to be so much wrestling going on.
Week after week.
Crushing it.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys later.
We'll see you, Ben.